Oh, I am doing wonderful.
I'm concerned about
Anything that's not done while we're setting, knots can get retied, a hole can be fixed.
When news of Todd Meadows' tragic accident aboard the Aleutian Lady reached the public, no one could have imagined the storm that would follow. The 25-year-old deckhand, full of courage and determination, was lost to the icy Bering Sea. But the real shock didn't end there.
Todd Meadows, one of the stars of the hit fishing reality show Deadliest, has died. He was 25. The tragic details surrounding the death have been revealed.
Almost immediately, questions, rumors, and intense scrutiny began swirling around Captain Rick Shelford. So, was this a heartbreaking accident or a disaster that could end a captain's career?
Rick Shelford, SR, is not only the president, but also the owner of Shelford Fisheries, a company he established back in 1995. They acquired the F/V Polar Lady, F/V Aleutian Lady.
Today, we uncover the investigation, the verdict, and the devastating human cost behind the headlines. The tragedy that shook Deadliest Catch. The world of Deadliest Catch was thrown into shock when news broke that a tragedy had struck the Aleutian Lady, one of the most storied vessels in the Bering Sea fleet. Todd Meadows, a young deckhand known for his energy, determination, and passion for life at sea, had died in a heart-wrenching accident during routine operations aboard the ship. The announcement spread like wildfire through the fishing community, the fan base, and social media, leaving everyone reeling from the sudden loss of a promising life. Todd was just 25, full of dreams, and already admired by his crewmates for his hard work and willingness to tackle the dangerous, unforgiving conditions of the Bering Sea. The tragedy quickly placed Captain Rick Shelford under an intense spotlight as questions began to surround the final moments before Todd Meadows' fatal accident aboard the Aleutian Lady. Fans, fellow fishermen, and industry observers started examining every possible detail, from the harsh weather and icy deck conditions to the crew's reaction and the captain's leadership during those crucial minutes. As the news spread, rumors and speculation followed, with some wondering whether the incident was simply a tragic accident or something more serious. The growing scrutiny left many asking if this heartbreaking loss could become a defining moment in Shelford's career. The questions were relentless and unavoidable. How could such a skilled, experienced crew lose a member in broad daylight? Was this a fluke in one of the most dangerous professions on Earth? Or was it something that could have been prevented? With each passing hour, the story grew more intense, as fans on social media shared theories, expressed grief, and demanded answers. The sense of disbelief was palpable. Here was a community built on respect for the courage and toughness of these fishermen, suddenly confronted with the terrifying reminder of how fragile life at sea truly is. Beyond the headlines, there was a deeper, more personal story unfolding. Todd Meadows was more than a deckhand. He was a young man chasing his dreams, a dedicated teammate, and someone who had quickly earned the admiration of the Aleutian Lady's tight-knit crew. And Captain Shelford, revered for his leadership and experience, now faced an unthinkable weight on his shoulders. Not only the grief of losing a crew member, but also the scrutiny of thousands watching every move, every decision, and every moment leading up to the tragedy. As the investigation began and questions multiplied, one chilling thought hung over the entire Deadliest Catch community. Could this devastating accident lead to real consequences for Captain Shelford and his crew? The Bering Sea had taken one of its own, and now the world was watching, waiting, and questioning whether the events of that day would mark the start of an even darker chapter. A crew member of the Deadliest Catch, Todd Meadows, tragically lost his life in a horrific accident aboard the Aleutian Lady, sparking a wave of questions and investigations. Who is leading the inquiry? What exactly is being investigated? Could the accident have been caused by the crew's negligence? And who will be held responsible for this devastating loss? Let's find out. Under the Coast Guard's lens. In the aftermath of Todd Meadows' tragic fall overboard, the eyes of the nation turned to the Aleutian Lady and its crew. The United States Coast Guard swiftly launched a formal investigation, determined to piece together exactly what had gone wrong on that fateful day in the Bering Sea. Every detail mattered: the conditions of the deck, the state of the equipment, the protocols followed by the crew, and the series of split-second decisions that led up to the accident. Nothing would be overlooked, and every angle was scrutinized with painstaking care. Investigators began their work by examining the vessel itself. They checked the safety equipment, from life jackets to harnesses, and assessed whether each piece had been properly maintained and accessible at the time of the accident. The crew's actions were analyzed step by step, from routine tasks to emergency response, to see if procedures had been followed correctly. Nothing on the Aleutian Lady went unnoticed. Even the subtle details, the way the deck was organized, the angle of railings, the placement of heavy gear, were inspected because in the harsh, unpredictable environment of the Bering Sea, minor oversights could have devastating consequences. Questions also arose about visibility, weather, and timing. Was the deck slippery from ice or snow? Were the waves higher than usual, pushing the vessel to dangerous angles? Could anything have been done to prevent the accident? Or was it a cruel twist of fate in an inherently dangerous profession? The investigators sought answers, combing through logs, interviewing crew members, and reviewing any available footage. Every voice mattered, every memory was recorded, and every scenario was considered. Throughout the investigation, Captain Rick Shelford remained under an intense spotlight. As the leader of the Aleutian Lady, he bore not only the responsibilities of navigation and management, but also the heavy weight of command when tragedy struck. His decisions, both in routine operations and in the frantic moments of Todd's fall, were examined from all angles. Shelford cooperated fully, providing statements, documentation, and insight into the workings of the vessel and the crew. Yet, the scrutiny was relentless, with public attention magnifying each discovery, every answer, and every question that arose. As the investigation unfolded, one undeniable truth became clear. Commercial fishing in the Bering Sea is fraught with peril, where even the most experienced crews can face unpredictable dangers. The Coast Guard's inquiry was not just about assigning blame, it was about understanding how a promising young life was lost, how accidents can be prevented in the future, and how the Aleutian Lady could continue operating safely in one of the most treacherous waters on the planet. The questions were many, the tension palpable, and the world watched closely, waiting to see what the investigation would reveal about that chilling day at sea, and how it would impact Captain Shelford, the crew, and the legacy of the Aleutian Lady itself. The United States Coast Guard launched an official investigation to determine the circumstances surrounding the death of Todd Meadows. And at the center of the investigation is Rick Shelford. But could he be held accountable for what happened? And how does he view the accident that took his crew member? Let's uncover the details. A captain's worst nightmare. For Captain Rick Shelford, the events of February 25, 2026 would forever leave a shadow over his life and career. That day, which began like any other in the unforgiving waters of the Bering Sea, quickly became the darkest and most haunting moment in the history of the Aleutian Lady. As he stood on the deck, surrounded by the icy wind and the relentless spray of waves, Shelford experienced a heart-wrenching reality that no captain ever wants to face. One of his crew members, a young deckhand full of promise and energy, had been lost to the sea. Leading a commercial fishing crew in the Bering Sea is a task that carries immense pressure even on the safest of days. Every decision, every maneuver, every command can mean the difference between life and death. But nothing could prepare Shelford for the gut-wrenching feeling of helplessness when Todd Meadows fell overboard. Despite years of experience and countless hours navigating treacherous waters, he found himself powerless against the brutal forces of nature. The sea, cold and unforgiving, had claimed one of his own, and there was nothing he could do to reverse it. As the shock of the accident settled, the emotional weight on Shelford's shoulders grew heavier with each passing moment. The responsibility of command, which he had always carried with pride and vigilance, now became a source of profound grief. He recalled later that the sound of the crew's frantic efforts to save Todd, the splashing, the shouts, the desperate cries, would never leave his memory. Every captain knows the risks, every fisherman understands the danger, but when tragedy strikes, the theoretical becomes painfully real. While the United States Coast Guard launched a thorough investigation into the incident, scrutinizing safety procedures, crew actions, and the condition of the deck, Shelford faced a parallel struggle, the personal reckoning with the loss under his watch. Questions swirled around him, not only from investigators, but from his crew, peers, and the wider Deadliest Catch community. Could anything have been done differently? Was there a moment, a choice, or a precaution that might have changed the outcome? These questions weighed heavily, gnawing at him long after the cameras stopped rolling and the media coverage faded. Yet, even in the midst of this personal and professional anguish, Shelford continued to command the Aleutian Lady with the same focus and dedication he always had. He understood that life on the Bering Sea waits for no one, and that leadership meant carrying the burden of tragedy while still ensuring the safety and cohesion of the crew. That day left scars that could never fully heal, but it also revealed the depth of a captain's courage, the weight of responsibility, and the profound human cost behind the daring lives of those who risk everything at sea. Though the accident left Rick devastated and harmed the reputation of his team, but will that stop the authorities from passing their verdict? And what verdict awaits Rick for the accident that took his crew member under his watch? Now, let's explore how Captain Rick Shelford bears the weight of loss. The final verdict and the captain's burden. As the investigation into Todd Meadows' tragic death unfolded, authorities examined every detail with great care. The United States Coast Guard carefully inspected the Aleutian Lady, reviewing crew procedures, equipment, and the harsh conditions on deck during that freezing February day. Nothing was overlooked, as officials tried to understand what truly happened. Meanwhile, fans and industry observers watched closely, knowing the findings could carry serious consequences not only for the crew and vessel, but also for Captain Rick Shelford's reputation and sense of responsibility. Investigators sought to determine whether negligence, lapses in safety, or avoidable errors had played a role in the heartbreaking accident. The harsh realities of life on the Bering Sea were put under the microscope, from the treacherous icy decks and violent waves to the relentless cold that chills the ocean to below 40 degrees. Every angle, every action, and every decision of that day was analyzed in search of clarity. For outsiders, it was a technical inquiry into procedures and protocols. But for those who understood the stakes of commercial fishing, it was also an examination of courage, judgment, and the fragile balance between risk and survival in one of the deadliest professions on Earth. In the end, the investigators' findings pointed to a sobering truth. There was no clear wrongdoing, no act of negligence, no broken procedure, no avoidable mistake could fully explain the tragedy. The accident was, in large part, a grim reflection of the brutal and unpredictable dangers that define life at sea. The Bering Sea is unforgiving, a place where even the most experienced crews face peril with every wave, and where skill and determination cannot entirely shield one from nature's harshest tests. Yet, for Captain Rick Shelford, this official conclusion brought little solace. Even with no legal fault assigned, the weight of responsibility remained as heavy as ever. In the world of the Aleutian Lady, every captain carries the lives of their crew on their shoulders. Every choice, every command, every moment at sea carries potential consequences. Losing a crew member is not something that can be undone by investigation or cleared by a ruling. It is a burden that lingers long after the official reports are filed. For many who watched from the outside, the formal findings provided closure. But for Shelford, the real sentence was invisible and immeasurable. The knowledge that a life was lost under his command, the grief of the crew, and the haunting reminder of how fragile human life can be against the raw, unforgiving power of the sea. It is a sentence no court can quantify, one that a captain carries silently forever. The findings pointed to the brutal and unpredictable dangers of commercial fishing rather than clear wrongdoing. Yet Rick couldn't forgive himself for leading a team that lost a crew member under his watch. But could he truly be blamed for the accident? How exactly did the loss occur? And was Todd left unattended to before dying? Let's find out. Betrayed by the Bering Sea. On February 25th, 2026, the Aleutian Lady was carrying out what should have been another routine day of fishing in the unforgiving waters of the Bering Sea, roughly 170 miles north of Dutch Harbor, Alaska. The morning began like any other, with crewmates moving quickly across the slippery decks, managing heavy equipment, and bracing against the relentless wind and waves. But in an instant, the calm rhythm of the vessel was shattered. Todd Meadows, a young deckhand known for his courage, energy, and determination, slipped overboard into the icy, merciless sea. The reaction from the crew was immediate and frantic. In seconds, men who had spent years navigating the dangers of the Bering Sea were on high alert, launching a desperate rescue. They worked together with precision and urgency, battling not only the powerful waves but also the chaos of a sudden emergency. Within minutes, Todd was hauled back onto the deck, shivering and pale from the freezing water. The crew scrambled to provide first aid, performing CPR and other life-saving measures, their hands trembling not from the cold, but from fear and adrenaline. Yet the ocean, as always, showed no mercy. The Bering Sea is notoriously brutal, with water temperatures that can plunge well below 40 degrees, conditions capable of sapping strength, slowing the heart, and numbing the body in just moments. Even as the crew fought valiantly to revive Todd, the cold had already begun to take its toll. Every attempt to bring him back was met with the cruel reality that nature in the far north is a force beyond human control. Medical equipment was brought on deck, and emergency protocols were activated. But despite their tireless efforts, Todd Meadows could not be revived. The deck that had once echoed with his laughter and energy now fell silent, marked only by the grief and shock of his fellow crew members. The tragedy was immediate, raw, and heartbreaking, a reminder of just how dangerous life at sea can be, no matter how skilled or prepared a fisherman might be. The Aleutian Lady carried on, but the crew would never forget the events of that day. In the cold, harsh expanse of the Bering Sea, one mistake, one slip, can become a life-altering moment. Todd's fall overboard was not just an accident. It was a stark, chilling illustration of the perils every fisherman faces every day. Though the crew acted with speed and courage, Todd was still lost to the sea. But could there have been challenges that should have deterred him from continuing the adventure that later took his life? What had he survived before the accident? Now, let's explore Todd Meadows' unbreakable spirit. Determination that defined him. Earlier that same season, Todd Meadows had already confronted one of the most daunting challenges a deckhand could face at sea. During routine operations aboard the Aleutian Lady, he suffered a serious concussion, an injury that instantly reminded everyone how dangerous life on the Bering Sea truly is. For Todd, it was a moment of vulnerability in a profession that demands toughness, precision, and unyielding focus. The incident required immediate attention, and in accordance with strict safety protocols, Todd was flown home to recover, leaving behind the vessel, his crew, and the rhythm of life at sea that he had come to love. Being away from the Aleutian Lady was not easy for him. While he rested and healed, Todd faced the mental and emotional strain of being separated from the crew he had grown close to, and the work that defined him. He thought about the long days, the icy waves, and the heavy pots waiting on deck. Yet even in recovery, he never wavered in his determination to return. His thoughts were filled with a singular focus. The work wasn't finished, and he had responsibilities to his crewmates and to the vessel. When Todd was finally cleared by medical professionals, he wasted no time. He returned to the Aleutian Lady, ready to face the challenges of the Bering Sea once again. The moment he stepped back onto the deck, his presence was a reminder to the crew of what true resilience looks like. Despite the physical pain he had endured and the fear that could have shaken anyone, Todd demonstrated a commitment to his job and to his team that went beyond personal safety. He understood that the sea does not pause for anyone, and he refused to let setbacks define him. This resilience became a defining part of Todd's character. It revealed a man who not only endured the hardships of one of the world's deadliest professions, but also embraced them with courage, focus, and a steadfast sense of responsibility. Todd's determination inspired those around him, showing that true strength is not measured by the absence of injury, but by the willingness to rise again, face danger head-on, and honor the trust others place in you. In many ways, this return to work following his concussion was more than a personal victory. It was a testament to the spirit of the Aleutian Lady and the crew who rely on one another in life-or-death situations every day. Todd's ability to confront fear, recover, and push forward encapsulated everything he stood for: courage, loyalty, and an unshakable commitment to his team, his craft, and the unforgiving sea that he called his workplace. Prior to his death, Todd had suffered an injury that could have discouraged many from continuing life aboard. But how did he join the crew? And was he so passionate about the work that later took his life? Or did circumstances simply lead him to the sea? Let's uncover the details. The young fisherman, behind the headlines. Todd Meadows was just 25 years old, yet he had already embraced a life most people would never dare to choose. The world of commercial fishing in the Bering Sea is known for being brutally demanding, unforgiving, and often life-threatening. From the moment he decided to pursue this career, Todd understood the risks, the long hours, and the relentless challenges that lay ahead. But he faced them with courage, determination, and a love for the sea that defined him. Born and raised in the small town of Montesano, Washington, Todd grew up surrounded by forests, rivers, and the open sky. His childhood was shaped by the outdoors, instilling in him a deep respect for nature and an adventurous spirit that could not be contained. Whether hiking through rugged trails or fishing along local waterways, Todd developed a connection to the elements that would later prepare him for the extreme conditions of the Bering Sea. Even in his early years, friends and family noticed his boundless energy, his optimism, and the natural way he inspired others around him. In May 2025, Todd's lifelong passion and perseverance led him to join the crew of the Aleutian Lady, a vessel navigating some of the harshest waters in the world. From the very beginning, he made an impression. Experienced fishermen, well-versed in the rigors of life at sea, quickly recognized his work ethic, intelligence, and fearlessness. Todd was not just another deckhand. He was a teammate who lifted morale with a simple smile or a word of encouragement. Even in the face of grueling 18-hour days, freezing winds, and the relentless roar of waves crashing over the deck, Todd's positivity never wavered. His determination became evident in every task he undertook. Whether hauling heavy pots, securing equipment, or navigating the slippery, ice-covered decks, Todd approached every challenge with focus and resilience. Yet, it was not just his skill that made him stand out. It was his personality. Crew members often remarked on his infectious enthusiasm, his ability to make even the most difficult days feel lighter, and his natural camaraderie that bound the team together. For the Aleutian Lady, Todd's presence was a reminder of why people choose this dangerous profession despite the risks. He brought hope, laughter, and energy to the crew, and in doing so became a figure of inspiration. He showed that courage, positivity, and determination can shine even in the coldest, most treacherous corners of the world. In a job where survival often hinges on skill and teamwork, Todd Meadows exemplified both, and he left a mark that would be remembered long after his time at sea. Todd was very passionate and determined to explore life at sea before his death. But did his life at sea prevent him from giving his family the attention they deserved? And what does his passing mean for his family? Let's uncover the devastating details. A family waiting at home. Behind the tough exterior of a deckhand battling icy waves and unforgiving winds, Todd Meadows was, above all else, a devoted family man. His life, though lived in the harshest of environments, was anchored by love, responsibility, and the deep bond he shared with those closest to him. Todd's partner, Kennedy Harvey, and their 3 young sons were not just part of his life. They were the center of it. Every choice he made, every risk he took, and every grueling hour spent on the Aleutian Lady was motivated by a single unwavering goal: to provide for them and give them a better life. In the rare quiet moments aboard the ship, Todd would speak of his children with pride and affection, painting pictures of their laughter, their milestones, and the small joys that made life meaningful. He often described his sons as his entire world, and it was this love that gave him the strength to face the daily dangers of commercial fishing. Life at sea is merciless, but Todd's thoughts always drifted back to the warmth and safety of his home, reminding him why he endured the long hours, the freezing temperatures, and the relentless physical strain. The Aleutian Lady, for all its crew camaraderie and shared purpose, could never replace the family Todd held dear. Yet, it was his determination to support them that drove his work ethic, fueled his courage, and shaped his character. He understood that in one of the world's most perilous professions, survival was not just about skill or strength. It was about sacrifice, perseverance, and putting the needs of loved ones above personal comfort. When tragedy struck on February 25, 2026, and Todd was lost to the icy Bering Sea, the impact reverberated far beyond the vessel and the Deadliest catch community. For Kennedy and their sons, the void left by his passing was immediate, profound, and immeasurable. No words, no gesture could fully capture the emptiness of losing a father, a partner, and a provider. The dreams he carried, the laughter he shared, and the daily acts of love that defined him were suddenly memories, cherished yet painfully incomplete. Todd Meadows' story is a stark reminder that behind the heroic tales of deckhands braving the world's most dangerous seas are real people with families who depend on them, who inspire them, and who bear the heaviest weight of their absence. He lived not just for adventure, not just for recognition, but for the small faces waiting for him at home, a devotion that made his courage at sea all the more extraordinary, and his loss all the more heart-wrenching. Todd's devotion to his chosen career did not prevent him from giving his family the attention they deserved, but his passing has changed everything. But what will he be remembered for now that he is gone? Let's find out. A legacy that will not be forgotten. Though his time on this earth was far too brief, Todd Meadows left a mark that will be remembered long after his passing. In just 25 years, he proved himself not only as a skilled and dedicated deckhand, but as a man whose heart and character resonated with everyone who crossed his path. On the decks of the Aleutian Lady, Todd's presence was unmistakable. His laughter could cut through the roar of the wind and waves, lifting the spirits of his crewmates during long, grueling hours in the Bering Sea. His energy was contagious, his work ethic unwavering, and his determination a quiet force that kept the team moving forward even when the ocean tested their limits. But Todd's life was far more than his role aboard the vessel. To those who knew him off the deck, he was a devoted father, a loving partner, and a loyal friend. His 3 young sons were the center of his universe, and everything he did, everything he risked while facing the relentless dangers of commercial fishing, was driven by a desire to provide for them and give them a life full of hope, love, and security. His partner, Kennedy Harvey, and his family remember a man whose devotion to those he loved was as strong as his courage at sea. Even in the face of extreme challenges, Todd never wavered from his responsibilities, and that balance of strength and tenderness defined the essence of who he was. On the Aleutian Lady, Todd's spirit became woven into the very fabric of the vessel. Every successful catch, every tough decision made on the icy decks, and every moment of camaraderie reflected his influence. He was more than just a deckhand. He was a source of inspiration, a reminder that courage and commitment go hand in hand. His determination and positivity were not fleeting. They became part of the spirit of the crew and the story of the ship itself. Todd's story also serves as a powerful and sobering reminder of the human beings behind the cameras of Deadliest Catch. Viewers see adventure, triumph, and peril on screen. But behind every frame are real lives, real sacrifices, and real people who risk everything to earn a living in one of the most dangerous professions in the world. The storms, the icy waters, and the long, exhausting hours are only part of the picture. The human cost, the courage, and the dreams that drive every deckhand are just as vital. Though Todd Meadows' life was tragically cut short, his legacy endures. Through his laughter, his love, and the countless moments of courage he displayed, Todd's memory lives on in his children, his loved ones, his fellow crew members, and every story told about him aboard the Aleutian Lady. He reminds us all that true heroes are not only defined by what they do, but by the lives they touch and the spirit they leave behind. So, what do you think about the sentencing of Rick after Todd's death? Could he truly be blamed for the loss of Todd's life? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.